welcome back to My Life with Plants on Newman, and we're going to do a sum up of these Japanese native orchids here in their native habitat, or pretty close to it, over the winter. So as you know, I have these in my garden, as you've seen from the previous videos, and every time, or throughout the winter season, I've taken videos to show you guys what these plants actually go through. So we're going to summarize that. And here, to aid along with the conversation, I've got one moniliforme, and this one actually has buds that are pretty visible. So if I put my hand there, you can actually see them coming out here. Once again, they do have a sheath on them, and it kind of hides them from the birds, which is a good thing. And it has a little bit of new growth coming away. And I always have them in tiny pots, and about half of this pot has styrofoam in it, or polystyrene. And if you don't want to use that, you can actually put sponge rock or cork. Break up some old pieces of cork, because you don't want it that deep with sphagnum moss. The reason why I use sphagnum moss again is because these pots are so small anyway. Number two is that it holds on to a certain amount of moisture, because these plants usually grow on rocky outcrops or on branches, and they have a relationship with moss. Moss helps to trap a little bit of moisture along the way. They tend to like to grow in it too. So, our summary. So what these orchids go through over here in this country is that they have a winter, and it starts up late November and starts in December. At that time, the humidity will start to drop. So it would be anything between 25 to 30% during the day, and it's very, very sunny. The daily temperatures are about 10 degrees, although if you are standing in the sun, it feels like 15 to 18 degrees. But the air temperature is very, very cold, and even during the day it can go down to even 8 degrees, about that. However, during the night time, that's when the humidity will shoot right up to 85 to 90%, and you can get from anything from 1 to 2 degrees, even as low as minus 8 degrees. And the thing is that at that time, depending on the altitude, here we're only 20 meters above sea level, but usually these guys come from anything from 1,000, 1,500 to 2,000 meters above sea level. And that means that they tend to get almost close to 100% humidity during the night, and they're able to absorb some moisture. Now, during our winter time, we don't get any rainfall. There isn't any, and it's very seldom. So during from December, January into halfway through January, about 40 to 45 days, we had no rain, and then we did manage to have some, and it was quite light rain. And then we had one day of quite heavy rain, but it was enough to wet, I don't know, maybe two inches down in the soil. That quickly dried up over the next remaining part of January, going right into March. And what happened then is that we had some light snow. We usually do. Down in the south of Japan, they experience that too. They'll have a snowy day or two in this native habitat that they come from, and then that snow will melt, and it will provide them with some water. That will happen at least 2 times before spring really rolls in. You can have some temperatures that can almost go up to 20 degrees now and then through March, and then when the final snows come, which this year it was kind of some snow and some kind of mushy snow, so it quickly melted away. Usually after that, we're coming into spring. We have plum trees out there in bloom. We have the cherry blossom trees. They're just starting to bud up. And these guys, okay, getting back to the Dendrobium moniliforme, they start to bud up in about late January to February, because they do get that little bit of moisture every night. Oh, it's not through rain, it's through humidity. And then when the days come, the humidity will go back down and it'll get very sunny. So they do experience a lot of shriveling in the canes. Sometimes it can make you get a little bit wary, or you might think that it's not healthy for them, but it is quite healthy. They do go through that. And once you do see the buds, and the buds are anything from a centimeter, you may resume watering. Okay, don't be afraid to start watering by then. You don't want to wait too long after that, because they can get exhausted because they've had quite a dry winter, and they might consume the buds and use it as reserves and drop them off. So this guy has actually had some water, because we've had the last snows. So we've had 2 days of light rain, not heavy rain, and some powdery snow, and then some slush, and it's melted. So these guys, within the next two weeks, and not even that, they'll come into full bloom. And that'll be right at the beginning of spring, which will be about, temperatures about 10 degrees at night, which is not that cold really, and maybe up to about 20 degrees maximum. These guys will come into full bloom. And during the springtime, I like to give a little bit of cow manure, or the dried up animal dung that's put into pellets. I'll put 1 or 2 in here, because it does the orchids some good. Next up is, I'm just going to show you a Vanda falcata, or Neophoenicia. Hang on a minute. Just hang this guy back up. And I gotta move it back outside, of course. A lot of you guys are interested in Neophoenicia falcata. They just call it a Vanda falcata now. So this is a good example of one that, amazingly, these Japanese Vandas are, naturally come from this country. That means they've adapted to it over millions of years, or whatever it's taken. It's a miniature. They offset from the bottom. They have the typical Vanda looking leaves that are quite stiff, hard, and conduplicate. Conduplicate means that they're almost folded over on themselves. So it's not quite like a acicular or needle shape, but it's like a leaf that's folded over on itself, and they're pretty stiff. During the winter time, this moss ball, when I have them out there, it gets bone dry. But remembering at the night, it can get up to 90% humidity, so that they do take a little advantage of that. I've seen these growing in my neighborhood. Virtually the moss in the pot is completely gone, and it's just a root ball, and they survive quite well, hanging out actually underneath a grapevine, which is deciduous, so they're kind of hanging out there in all the elements. And this one here, actually, I've had it just indoors here because I bought it not long ago. Decided to save it because I'm pretty sure not a lot of people know what it is. You can see that even during the winter, it does not lose its roots. Its roots will stay intact and stay quite healthy. It's recommended that you treat this just like the Dendrobium moniliforme. You give it that same dry treatment. However, when it gets to spring, just resume watering. And this guy will come into bud during the summertime. Over here, that's the monsoon, that's the rainy season. when it sets its buds and it flowers. And then after it's flowered, that'll be about June or July. Got to make sure that you give it some feed, so some animal pellet in there to give it a boost so that it can flower nicely. And it does love a lot of humidity. It loves plenty of water, making sure that the moss ball is mounted up like that, to make sure that any excess moisture drains away and doesn't cause any rot. Yes, and once it's flowered, we go into August, which is the time where the actual monsoon passes, and then we experience more harsh kind of UV, much hotter temperatures, and this guy just goes into growth mode, and sometimes it goes a little dormant. But the best thing to do with these Japanese natives is to hang them under trees. It's the best thing you can do. You can hang them in a pergola or pergola and things like that, but you can't beat trees. Trees are excellent because underneath a nice green tree with leaves, it cools them down. It keeps them cooler than if you put them under a pergola. It's much hotter there. You've got to have big industrial fans and everything moving around. I notice underneath trees here, it doesn't get over 30 to 31 degrees, which is ideal. But outside of the tree, hanging anywhere else in this country, especially where I live, 20 meters above sea level, it gets over 35 degrees. That puts stress on these plants. So that's just a little growing tip for you. You're better to hang them under trees. And so that's about sums everything up for you. I hope you enjoyed watching all those videos that I made of these Japanese orchids, as close as I can get to their natural environment, which is out in the garden there, and all the elements. And what we're going to follow up now on is them budding and flowering, and we're going to do a follow-up on these Vanda falcatas going into the summer and watching them come into bloom too, because they're quite magnificent when they bloom. It's such a great fragrance. As far as talking about how many native orchids there are in Japan, there's pretty much 4 or 5 that really stand out. That's Vanda falcata. We've got another Vanda that's native to Okinawa and those tropical islands, which is a much larger Vanda. So it's a typical fan-shaped flowers, flagellata or something like that. And also we have the Phalaenopsis japonica that has another name too, and that's another treasure, but it's from the tropics. In our regions here and going south, it's the Vanda falcata and the Dendrobium moniliforme, and there's another one called Tonensii or something like that that has yellow flowers, sprays of yellow flowers. It's another native. And we have a magnificent looking ground orchid that's a Phaeus flavus that has quite large beautiful yellow flowers that resemble cymbidiums, and they got a lovely fragrance, and I have one of those. Yeah, we got quite a few treasures here, but probably the best 2 well-known ones is the Vanda falcata and Dendrobium moniliforme. Anyway, until next time, we'll see you. Thanks for watching.